If I can deliver something without distortion, I would just ballpark estimate, I would say 60% of people are going to be open to hearing some form of like, oh, yeah, okay, got it. But if I come with like attack energy, or if I'm coming at you with like, Rocky, I feel hurt while also energetically saying you're a total bag of dicks, it's not going to be received. And so I would say in a perfect world, 60% of people.
Hey, it's Rocky. Welcome to Richer Soul. Today, we've got two guests, Erin Pheil and Evan Walton, who help you clear the distortions in your relationships. Imagine it's 12 months from now, and you've achieved your major life goals. How does it feel to be in the best shape of your life? To wake up energized, excited about the day? To have great relationships and friends who support you and propel you forward? How does it feel to have an excess of money, to be able to make the choices you want? To be fearless and open to trying new adventures? Imagine being connected to the universe and it providing everything you desire. It's possible over time, and your past does not dictate your future. The only thing holding you back from this vision is you. It's time to take control of our thoughts and use them to our advantage. Welcome to Richer Soul, where we achieve our dreams and bring balance to health, wealth, relationships, time, and spirituality. If you have not had a chance to listen to episodes 1 through 9, I encourage you to go back and listen to the framework behind Richer Soul and how to create the life of your dreams. You can also find all the show notes for this episode at richersoul.com. Today we've got Erin Pheil and Evan Walton to join us on the podcast. Erin's been here before, and I've worked with both of them on my own journey. And I can tell you the amount of insights and openings are dramatic. They're life-changing. And you might even learn about things within yourself that you didn't even know were there. Like I said, Erin's been on before. If you want to check out her episode, you can go back and listen to that one. Erin is the founder of the Mind Fix Group, where she helps high-performing entrepreneurs and leaders overcome stuckness, relationship challenges, and inner limitations through private coaching and retreat. Before that, she spent 17 years running an award-winning web agency. Evan co-founded and scaled an Amazon business in his early 20s before discovering his true calling, helping people to heal. Now he guides entrepreneurs and their families to release trauma, reconnect with themselves, and regain confidence when they feel lost. Together, they're pioneering this work of clearing distortions, the invisible twists that sabotage connection, create resentment, and block us from ease in our relationships and lives. We'll explore what these are, how to recognize them, and how to clear them so that you've got more peace and more flow in your life. Let's meet Erin and Evan. Welcome to Richer Soul, Erin and Evan. It's great to have Erin back and to meet you, Evan.
Thank you, Rocky. It's good to see you.
So we always like to start at the beginning. Since we know Erin's story, we'd like to hear yours, Evan. What was it like when you were growing up, and how much did your family and school teach you about money?
Superb question. It was tough growing up. I grew up with a single mom who was constantly striving for money and not making much. And I think growing up, what I learned about money was that it was incredibly hard to earn. And yet, because there was a part of me that resisted authority, I also had this part of me that said, no, it's not. It can't. It must be easy. There must be an easy way. So I think that's kind of what I learned, was this constant like, oh, it has to be hard. No, it doesn't. And then trying to figure out what's the easiest possible way.
Were you always that contrarian? Like, was that something you were born with, or is that something that kind of came out at some point?
Yeah, I've done a few personal reading things and whatever you want to call it, and they all said that you have questioning authority as multiple of your gifts. But I think in growing up, I had a very strong distaste for authority's sake. And growing up with a mom who was constantly overwhelmed, there was a lot of authority that didn't make sense to me. And so questioning things was in my genes, in my blood, but it also was something that I did just to try to figure out the world.
And nobody kind of I was going to say beat it out of you, but that's not because when you go to school, they literally take away your questioning authority. But it
Yes.
seems like you survived all of that and you continued to do it.
Yes. So I would say I got lucky in a sense that a lot of different places had the desire for no authority to be questioned. And so I stopped questioning it externally and would, be able to comply with whatever needed to happen externally while internally questioning everything. Internally keeping my bastion of like, this is my space and I get to figure out what's real or not. So a lot of my questioning didn't come out as outward rebelliousness. It came out as complicitness here with all of the rebelliousness happening in here and all of the questioning happening in here. And so it led to a lot of interesting searches, a lot of interesting journeys, while even following the traditional path, I would say.
That's interesting. Like, was that a problem to keep that harmony inside, or like, did it cause you issues, or you would just chill with it?
It's interesting. I think what ended up happening for me, and it looks like we've frozen a little bit. I'm not sure if that's us or you, but so the thing that came up for me was that I started to deeply question my reality of like, are my feelings real? Or is what I'm perceiving real? When all the authorities are saying one thing and I'm feeling a totally separate thing, like something has to be true and I don't know what it is. And so it sent me into this deep search for what is true, what is real, what is happening. And I think in a lot of ways, that's what we're going to talk about, what we're doing later, but that's what prepared me for a lot of this stuff, was that search for, I'm getting told one thing and I'm feeling a totally separate thing. How do I reconcile these two data points?
And that's interesting. That's not normally what most kids think about.
Yes.
Did you have conversations with other people when you were young about that, or did you just kind of leave it internal?
I left it internal. And then for years, I suffered from loneliness, chronic frustration and overwhelm, depression, lack of connection to the world and to people because of how much I questioned my own inner feelings and thought they were all wrong and thought, I don't know what to share, what not to share. And so it kind of led to just this clamming up pressurizer that until about 29, maybe, didn't start to come back out.
Was there like an event that caused you to shift the way you did it, or was it just kind of like a slow unraveling? You started to find your way, so to speak.
Yeah. I think what ended up happening, in truth, the biggest thing was Erin and I beginning our dating, and a lot of conflict in that dating. And this was the first relationship in which I could actually have anger and emotions and talk about what's going on for me and find the signal in the emotion, find what is real or useful in the emotion. Now, there was all the coaching work I'd done. There was the other stuff that we've kind of contributed to the world before that. But I think the biggest moment of inflection point for me was the moment where I had a place where I could safely explore emotions and they wouldn't be wrong. And I could find what was the signal in here that's useful.
That usually doesn't happen in relationships, does it?
No.
Well, I'm glad it worked out.
Me too.
Is that what drove you to do this work? Was that, or was there something else that kind of got you to realize this and look at this?
I think the biggest thing that got us to do I'll speak for myself, what got me to do the work was this deeply frustrating in our relationship, this deeply frustrating sense of no matter what I do, we can't seem to solve these problems. We can't figure this out. There's something broken in me. There's something wrong with me. There's something going on that I can't figure out. And I needed to figure it out. And so I did a 3-month trip to France and was alone basically for 3 months, meditating, digging into my emotions, crying, whatever else a guy needs to do in a metamorphosis such as France. And in sitting with all of that, I just found what we now call distortions, all sorts of these things that were sitting in the middle of our relationship that neither of us could see, that were blocking connection between Erin and myself. And these distortions, the more we dug into our relationship, the more they popped out of every piece of woodwork that existed in our relationship. And so thinking at one point, I was broken, there's something wrong with me, she's an absolute witch and I can't hang out with her. That transformed into, oh no, there's like 15, 20, 30 little distortions happening in our relationship that neither of us has been aware of. It's suffocating our relationship. And so that was the impetus for a lot of what we're doing now for me. And do you want to speak in your experience?
Oh, sure.
Rocky and I are like, yeah.
I remember there was this really interesting, because we had been friends for so many years, and there was this very weird tension of like, wait, are we going to be dating? Are we not going to be dating? And I just remember the number of times he would say to me, there's something between us that's like twisted. There's like some twisted thing between us and I can feel it. And I thought that was just him making something up, or like, there was something else he wasn't sharing, but he's like, no, I can feel it. It's not you and it's not me, but there's something in the middle that's like, it's distorted. And it's as if there's a blanket, like a smooth field, and someone's taken it and twisted it up. And I never felt it. So I didn't know what he was talking about, but he kept going, no, like, I'm going to explore this. I'm going to look into this. There's something here that neither one of us has seen. And I don't think it's a you thing. And I don't think it's a me thing. And I cared so much. And I felt like he was onto something. And so that's what started us down that journey. And sure enough, we started exploring and like, oh, there is this piece that was between us. And as soon as we'd come and find one of these weird distortions between us, things would suddenly feel better. I'd feel better. He'd feel better. We were communicating better. And each time we would find these and remove them from the space in between us, it was like that twisting experience got less and less and less. And the relationship got easier and easier and felt just so much more ease between us.
That's interesting. So, like, I'm still unclear of what these distortions are. So for people listening, like, what does that look like? Like, practically, what is this?
Yeah. So we've started to document. We have maybe 6 dozen different types of distortions at this point that happen in between two humans that can, the way I would term it is throttle the life force between the two humans in the relationship. It can throttle the life force of the relationship. For Erin, she would say these are things that cause pain, frustration, conflict in the field between two people. But a distortion can come in any number of flavors, from like a belief that someone doesn't know that they have, a feeling that they're totally disconnected from in this moment. It is something, it's like a mythology that they have embodied and don't know that they're currently playing out. Or it can be judgments of the other person that they haven't known that they have been carrying, that they're expressing through their actions and their words, but not acknowledging in themselves. So it's kind of these little splinters or little infections that are holding their system back that they don't know are there. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense.
They're invisible, and yet they're impacting a relationship. They're impacting the way that two people interrelate. So two people may be having a conversation, but depending on the distortions, I think about them as almost funhouse mirrors. So I say A, but if there's a distortion, it might go through that little funhouse mirror and the other person hears Q. And they're like, Q, huh? Q. And then they come back and they say something or act in a certain way or don't act in a certain way. And it goes through that funhouse mirror and they say, well, R. And I'm like, oh, X? And so these distortions, when they're there, they're invisible. Neither party can see them, but they are shifting how two people hear the other, how they perceive the other, what they feel when they're around the other. And it shifts the energy between two people enough that over time, those patterns can create miscommunications, misunderstandings, pain, suffering, assumptions, that even though each person's like, I'm being totally clear, they don't see this invisible funhouse mirror that is distorting the energy, words, feelings between two humans.
And so what I would express this as what it looks like in reality, and we can go into different types of distortions, but what it typically looks like in reality is that couples or people or even parents and children, or it can be any group of people, like the CEO and his COO, can have just anger, resentment, or disconnection that seems to be growing and they can't figure out why. So they're growing in different directions and they can't figure out why. Or they're trying to connect and they can't. They keep missing each other and they think they're working on the right issue, but they just can't solve it. Like there's something that just doesn't go away.
So that first question I asked you about money and growing up, we asked that question because everyone has a money mindset, a belief around money.
Yeah.
Most people aren't aware of them.
Yeah.
And so, they go through life, and if they grew up and everyone around them in the church and everyone told them rich people are evil, they grow up, they start making money. The first thing they do is lose all their money because rich people are evil, and I don't want to be a rich, evil person.
Yes.
I'm wondering if, is that a similar type of thing to what you're talking about, in that it's that belief system that gets created, and maybe we see it, maybe we're not aware of it, that's causing these distortions? Or are what you talking about bigger, wider?
Yeah, that is the perfect example of a type of distortion where someone has, on one hand, they have a desire for wealth, but on the other hand, they have a subconscious fear of, if I am wealthy, I am evil, because of this unquestioned program that was kind of inserted into their brain when they were a little kid. And then the fear that belies that now, which is, I don't want to be evil. I've been told I have to be a good person. So there's emotions that come with that belief, but that is exactly the kind of stuff that we're talking about, is these unquestioned little things that they don't even know to question, let alone to solve.
That makes sense. The other thing it reminds me of is Marshall Rosenberg and his nonviolent communication. And it's hilarious because he sits there with the two puppets. You can catch that on YouTube. And they have conversations like a husband and wife would, or people who are dating. And it's neither side is listening to the other. There's not even the distortion. It's literally more like a reflection. They speak into the mirror and they're not even, and the other person speaking to themselves in the mirror, and the two sides aren't even hearing the other side. They're only hearing whatever they chose to make up in their mind. Similar again to what you're talking about, different?
Well, I can speak to a money distortion that was very real between the two of us, for example. So I think I remember there was a situation in which Evan had gone to a client and he was like, you know what, let's just do these extra hours. Let's spend an extra 3 hours and then 4 hours and then 5 hours and then 6 hours, and all these extra hours, we can just give it to him because we want to help them and because this is fun. And I was able to be present with my body and notice like a contraction and a tightening as he was getting more and more excited. I was getting more and more tight because I'm sitting here going, wait a second, this does not align with my relationship to money and giving away my services that I've worked my whole life for free. This feels gross. So he's getting excited and lit up. I'm starting to feel tight, right? So a distortion would be if we went on with our week and I never brought this up. Because what that creates is this twisted energy between us where I'm feeling resentment at him. He has no idea. He's having a great time. He's working with the client. He's having fun. It's great, right? But I'm holding this resentment, and that's between us. But he doesn't know it. So if I don't bring that up, it's an invisible tension between us. I may push it down and it may come out when I snap at him for not doing something, or I judge him like, well, if you weren't spending all your time with the client, we would have more time to do X, right? Like it come out passive aggressive. So what happens is you know, how we have these different beliefs. His primary motivation in life is to do what's fun. Like he wants to do what is fun and inspiring. I might have more of a motivation to do what's responsible and more of a focus on generating money. So if we have these different motivations and goals and we're moving forward and we experience, there's that tension between us and it's not named. We don't throw sawdust on it and it stays invisible. That will impact us. That will impact the relationship. That will create tensions. It will bubble up somewhere. And so to be able to name the tension, to name the distortion, and to have a discussion about it and clear it so that both parties can understand where each other are at, that is what allows the energy to flow, for there to be peace and ease, for there to be not misunderstandings, or for me to not carry resentment and judgment, push it down. And maybe as a level 1 or 2, but imagine over the course of a year or 2, if I'm pushing down level 1s and 2s, that's going to come out at some point and negatively impact us because I'm carrying around judgment and frustrations. And he has no idea, right? It's never talked about.
He's happy as can be, it looks like. Content. This is why 12 years later, you get yelled at for that thing that happened 12 years ago.
Yes.
And it's like, what? Like, seriously? That was 12 years ago. You're still carrying that?
It's still there. It remains. It remains.
So how do you start to clear these types of things?
So I think the first step to clearing them, you asked about Marshall Rosenberg, and I think he does an amazing job to speaking to different types of distortions. There's a couple that, as an example, he would notice that someone might have upset, see their husband not do the dishes and feel upset. And they might roll those two things into one statement, which is, you're selfish. You're a selfish prick. That is a few levels of distortion away from the actual truth of what's happening. And so the first step to understanding what distortions are is to understand that we all have them. She has her own flavor. I have my own flavor. You have your own flavor. Everyone else does too. But what these things do is they garble the way we speak, like what Marshall Rosenberg would say. It garbles the way we communicate, which adds unnecessary suffering to a relationship. It also garbles the way we hear. So the first step is to admit, okay, the way I hear is not completely accurate. And it is like it's getting distorted on the way in before I even receive it. My nervous system interprets things before I can get it. From there, the next step is actually, as weird and impractical as this sounds, is to start noticing the feelings that come up that make no sense. Does that make sense?
No, it makes no sense. Of course.
So often, yeah, go ahead.
I'm just, it does. I think it does. You know, when you were talking earlier, you were always saying, I feel. And Erin was like, I think. Yeah. And I get that because I'm the I think person, right? So, but yet the feelings are there. I just don't recognize them in the same way. And I'm really starting to understand the science behind this, that even if you don't recognize it, they are driving the I thinks. And when you start to actually slow down and pay attention, you can start to see where the actual physical I feel sensations are coming into place. But what probably happened is there were too many of those feelings. So, you know, we turned them off because it was easier to do that. And so that's what I'm kind of getting from this. And I do want to name it. But yes, being able to think through and feel it and slow down enough and turn off the automatic answer. Like, in other words, if you saw something flying through the sky and flapping its wings, you'd be like bird and you'd stop thinking about it because you've already named it. You don't need to realize that it wasn't actually a bird, but you didn't bother to think. And so that's kind of the same concept that I'm seeing here. You're saying something and I'm automatically putting all of my beliefs, emotions, and everything else behind it and responding to my belief about what I think I heard you say. Did I get that right?
You know, what you mentioned, it was absolutely accurate. In fact, and when you said, like, what's one of the first steps to be able to clear distortions? And if I had to boil everything down, it would be we are helping people as a first step, getting in touch with what's real for them and what their experience is and what they're feeling. Because a lot of what's happening with distortions is that people are either disconnected from themselves or they're disconnected from the other person. If I'm going, you are such a jerk and you're so lazy and I can't stand you, like that creates a disconnection. Like we're not connected in that moment. He's going to go probably into like a defensive, well, oh yeah, well, you don't do this, right? We are so far away from what we're both experiencing. We're using labels, we're disassociated from ourselves, right? And so when we have these distortions of labels and judgments, etc., what we invite people to do is come back to, whoa, 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 whoa. Like, what are you experiencing right now? In throwing that judgment and that label at someone else, are you experiencing hurt? Are you experiencing frustration? Is what's happening in your throat? What's going on with your hands? And if that can be shared, suddenly it's like, I noticed when you did X, I was feeling so much sadness. In sharing an experience instead of pointing a finger, that can create so much more connection. I'm connecting to myself and I'm connected to what I'm experiencing, which is the only truth, right? Like my truth. This is what I'm feeling. And then I'm sharing that with him. I'm not pointing fingers. I'm not labeling. I'm not saying anything about him. I'm just like, here's what I'm experiencing. And from that space, more connection and understanding and compassion can happen. But when people are disconnected, when they're using labels and judgments and pointing fingers and holding on to resentments and throwing resentment bombs of you did this 3 years ago, they're not talking about what they're feeling or experiencing. And that's where a lot of distortions end up sticking.
So is a lot of this also about the language of explaining how you're taking it in and what you're going through I guess in a way that you're removing I don't know the right way to say it, but you're removing the accusation from the conversation. And you're not, when you do this, I feel this kind of a response. Mm-hmm. And it's not to say that you're the cause of it. It's just, hey, this is an old automatic response of mine that I never even realized I had that you're strumming on. This episode of Richer Soul is sponsored by the Profit Answer Man podcast. If you're a business owner who wants to scale and grow, increase profits, or want to have strategic conversations around your financials, then check out the podcast. You'll learn how to work less, increase cash flow, increase profits, and build reserves to help you weather storms. It's built on the Profit First methodology of pay yourself first. The Profit Answer Man podcast is a must listen to for every small business owner and anyone who wants to help them survive and thrive. Check it out on your favorite listening platform.
I think we could go into a number of different distortion patterns to start to illuminate what these look like. But what you're saying is exactly right. Like this is exactly one of them. So one thing that can happen is, let's say the wife sees her husband not do the dishes, as an example. In that moment, she starts to feel sadness, hurt, whatever it is. But instead of being willing to allow that feeling to come into her and metabolize it, I know that sounds like a weird word, she points the finger out at the husband and says, "You're a selfish prick." That pointing of a finger, anytime you hear you are something, this is something, you are something, what's happening is there's a dissociation from the actual feeling that's there and a refusal to allow the thing to go through the person and instead pointing it outward. So that's the first example of like a type of distortion where anytime you see yourself or see someone pointing a finger, you know a distortion is happening.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So most of the stuff we've been talking about is like relationships.
Yeah.
We talked a little bit about money. You mentioned though, there are a whole bunch of other patterns, right? So what are some of the other types of patterns that are out there that we've kind of not touched on to just so people can start to see it around them in a variety of ways?
So my favorite one is one that I pioneered because I was so good at it. It's called resentment traps. And a resentment trap is basically where we discovered this was I got into the car and I was feeling extremely silent, feeling extremely like needing space and quiet to be alone. And yet at the same time, I felt an intense need to make sure Erin was okay. And this intense need to make sure she was okay, I said, while I was wanting the car to be quiet, I said, hey, do you want the music on? Now, on the surface, that's a pleasant question. That's fine and dandy. But what's really happening is in me, I don't want the music on, but I'm offering to you, do you want the music on? Which puts her in what we call now a resentment trap. And a resentment trap is, hey, I'm going to give you two options. Behind one of them is a lot of resentment that you don't know is there because I'm trying to be a nice person. And behind the other one, you're safe. But there's surface area for resentment to be built because I haven't checked in with me. Does this make sense? Seems like that.
This is why men don't understand women?
Yes.
Okay.
You're given two options, but it's not really two options. So one of behind door, one you don't know which door, but behind one of the doors, there is a lot of resentment that is going to come out at you another time.
Okay. It does make sense. Yes.
Yes. So a resentment trap is a way of me wanting to be a good person to you and or to Erin.
Or look like a good person.
Yeah, look like a good person. So present an option that's actually not okay with me, but I'm going to give it to you. And if you make that decision, unfortunately, I will build resentment for you, and you don't even know how this resentment got there. So resentment traps are a pretty fun first example. And if you start to look around, you might see people making offers that they don't really seem to want, that they're doing to try to be a good person or doing to try to take care of you or doing to try to be nice. And those are what we call resentment traps now. Yeah, so that's the first example we can kind of play with. And hopefully you can see it. It's kind of like, yep, there's, yep.
So Rocky, one of my friends left her very, very expensive jacket here at my house for like a year. And I finally texted her a picture and I was like, do you want this back? Do you want this jacket back? And her text back was, go ahead and throw it out if it's bothering you. Or I'll come pick it up in the next month if it's not bothering you too much. And I sat there and I read this text and I imagined myself dropping it into the trash bin. And I just had this hunch like we wouldn't have a friendship anymore if I actually did that and took option A. And so I checked in with her and I said, just to double check, are you 100% feel good? I can take this option. We will be friends. And it would feel good if I just took this very expensive coat and put it in the trash can in my garage. And she came back. She's like, oh no. I would not have talked to you for a very long time and I would have hated you for a long time. And she goes, I do this everywhere.
I'm confused though.
Yes.
Why was it sitting there for a year? Like, there's got to be something else beside that.
She moved. She left it and she moved across the country and just hadn't been back.
All right.
He's got a good nose for distortion, this guy.
Yes.
Yeah, like, I'm like, why hasn't she picked it up? Like,
Yes.
Weird. All right, that was a very interesting one. What are some other ones that are very noticeable to people once they can see it?
This is called behalfing someone. Now, behalfing someone looks like, let's use an example. We have a friend who we were hanging out with one day, and our friend said, well, I'm just going to go so you guys can have some space for yourselves. And both Erin and I were like, we never get to see this person, and we want to see this person. But she's saying she's leaving on behalf of us. But she hasn't asked us what we want. And so behalfing someone is the idea of saying, I'm going to do something for you without asking you what you want. So it can also look like, I heard one of these from a client the other day. He had a woman that he was about to go on dates with, and the woman came back to him and said, you just seem like you're looking for someone that's got it more together right now. And so, I'm just going to, we won't talk as much. And I was like, no, that's behalfing. That's saying I'm doing something on behalf of you without checking that this is what you actually want.
It's someone taking an action because they want to, but they're saying it's just for you, right? But at the end of the day, it's they're doing something they want to do. Like, that's how we all act. We do the things we want to do, but it's presenting as we're being thoughtful and we're doing this on behalf of you. And half the time, the other party is like, that's not even what I want. That's not. We didn't even have a discussion about this. Like, our friend was literally going to leave, and we would have preferred it if she stayed, but she wanted to go. But she's like, because I'll give you guys time to be together, so I'm going to go. And we're like, that's not what we want at all.
Are you sure she's a friend?
Yes.
Just checking.
And this is the tricky part, because in the person's mind who is behalfing another person, they believe most of the time that they're doing it on behalf of the other person. They believe, our friend believed she was trying to help us. But the problem was she wasn't in touch with the fear in her and the desire to leave. And so it created this kind of distortion between the three of us that was like, I'm going to leave on behalf of you, while we're saying, no, that's not what we want. Mm-hmm. So they think they're helping.
Are most people blind to themselves in that sense?
Yes. I believe that our distortions exist because they're covering up an emotional thing we haven't wanted to touch in ourselves, emotional kind of infection running in the background. And so distortion patterns typically come in to protect from a fear. They come in to cope with a fear or a worry. And so these patterns are purporting to help the person connect better with their friends, as an example, while actually hurting the friendship. So they come across as totally invisible to most people because they're purporting to help with the fear, but they're actually creating more of the thing that's not desired. So it's like a big emotional blind spot for every person has different ones, but yeah.
Mm-hmm. So whenever I read a psychology book, they all seem to come to the same conclusion. At the core, the problem is I am not enough. And if I'm not enough, I won't be loved. And so it's like that fear of that. So taking the example you gave, if a couple of the examples, they don't wash the dishes, they don't love me, I'm not enough. Mm-hmm. These people don't want to hang out with me today. I need to leave, like I'm not enough. Do you find that to be a core, or is it wider than that?
I think it's a very common one. I wouldn't call it the core of everything. I wouldn't say it's the core of everything. I would say it's a very common aspect, but I can also see how many of these behaviors come from a fear of, it's just a fear in their body, a fear of, I can't say what I'm supposed to say because if I do, I'll be hurt for it. My girlfriend will leave. Or
right. So it comes back to, if I'm not enough, they don't love me, they'll leave and I'll be alone. Like that's that whole.
Yeah. Or it can come back to like the universe is such that if I say the thing that's real for me, I will be punished for it. And so it definitely can come from not enoughness, but I think that's a very common layer of this, but it's not the core of everything.
Okay. I think of that like, if you go back to when we all lived in the tribe of supposedly 150 people, if you don't follow the tribe, you get thrown out. And so it's that same primal fear of you can't mess with the tribe and you can't not be.
Yeah. And at the core of that, or one of the things that could be at the core of that, is the fear of annihilation. The fear of, if I'm eliminated from the tribe, like, okay, I lose my connection, I lose everything else, but also my life is on the line. There's yeah, there's something deeply primordial about a lot of these fears that can run people. And that's why they can run people for so long, because they're so instinctual.
Erin, do you have some, I'll call them favorite distortions?
Oh my gosh, I've been documenting them. Like, I feel like I think we're up to like 73 or something like that. Honestly, resentment traps are one of my favorite just because I like, that was so fun to find those and not experience them anymore. And then the one that we uncovered that I actually have had problem with was one I spoke about earlier, was the A to Q. Someone would say A to me, A, and I would turn it around in my mind. And my challenge is I would often take like 1 point. Someone would give me like 10 different things, and I would take 1 point, hyper focus in on that 1 point, and then twist it and come back and just focus on that one thing. So it was almost like a mass subtraction or a hyper focused distortion, which would really shift the quality of conversations, because the other person would be frustrated because I would take like one thing and I would notice, this is the thing that hurt me. This is the thing that you're trying to do. And because of my own beliefs or fears or what I would hear or my stuff around how valuable I was, I would pull like one marble out of a bucket of 100 marbles I've been given and come back and go, this is what we're talking about. And just the frustration that, Evan or someone else would experience of going like, where are you getting that? You're missing, like, you're talking about a tree in the forest. Like, where's the forest? That's a big one that I've actually had to work through. Is I've often known I'm a good listener, but I would be, my listening got distorted because I'd listen to everything and then cherry pick one thing that would feed a lot of my fears or worst fears and come back. And that's where I would take the conversation. So that has been a huge learning for me, because I would think I'm being accurate and I was thinking I was taking the conversation in a good direction, but all I was doing was deepening what I was most scared of.
Interesting. So since there's so many of these, is there a book coming?
We're working on it.
Okay. Because we're not going to cover all 73 today. So that's why,
No, we've got expression dictionary. We're working through it.
So how do we fix this? Like, as people start to notice this, now what? It's like, I just can't be running around all day going, "Ooh, distortion, distortion, distortion."
I would say one of the first things is that, like we talked about earlier, when people can notice how they're feeling and actually track that and start to share that. Like, I noticed I felt upset on our phone call the other day and I hung up saying, "Love you, bye." But actually, I noticed I was upset, and being able to take some of those things that we're noticing and bringing them into conversations instead of hiding our truths and trying to keep the peace, the short-term peace, actually becoming more aware of what's happening within us, our thoughts, our judgments, our bodies, experiences, and bringing them into conversations with other people when it's safe to do so. And being able to have what we call like level 2 conversations. Level 1 is, how's the local sports team doing? What's the weather like? Do you like to eat burgers or pizza? Level 1 conversation. But then we can go into level 2 conversations where we're talking about how we talk with each other and how we relate and what it's like to be with each other. And so being able to, number one, notice, name, and then share, like, hey, Rocky, I noticed in being here with you today, this is what it's been like for me. That's what can shift so much of it, because otherwise everything's being hidden and not shared. And we're running around having level 1 conversations about the weather and people's dogs every day, which we can do, but it's not getting to like the heart of what is going on. And it decreases that connection that I think so many people are looking for.
That sounds very similar to something else I've heard about. And I don't remember what it's called, but it's along the same concepts, because the way you shared that wasn't judgmental and it wasn't accusatory. It was just, hey, this is what I'm noticing kind of going on. And so that it just reminds me of that. It also reminds me I'm allergic to level 1 conversations, but that's a whole nother story.
If you had to pick an allergy, you could pick worse.
So the answer then is A, awareness of the pattern, right? And then the fix is to kind of explain what you're feeling in that moment in that essentially non-judge, like the way that you did it.
I've got another point to add to it, a little addition.
Sure.
Very useful. So as we look at all of these types of distortions, we all have our own flavor. But what we find with most people, and I'll share this about myself, one of the things that I struggled with so deeply for a long time in my life was so an example of this is I was driving with a couple of friends to go swimming, and I forgot my swim trunks. And we were only a block away from the house. We had barely left. And I said, I forgot my swim trunks. And my friend said, do you want to turn around to grab them? And my instant response was, no, I'm good. No, I'm fine. And that autoresponder that was running for me was not checked in with myself, but what was happening was underneath that, no. There was the answer of no. And then there was an energy of fear of, I don't want to burden my friends. What if, I don't want to ask too much. I don't want to have needs. I don't want them to have to inconvenience them. What if they don't like me because I have needs? And all of this stuff was running underneath the surface of my autoresponder. And what I would say in terms of how to start looking at this stuff is to look at not just the thing that I said, which is the, no, I'm fine. But to look at what's the energetic, and this is going to sound a little woo, but like what's the energetic come from of what I just said? Is it coming from like happiness, joy, peace? Or is it coming from fear of what if they have to turn around and they don't like me? Or what if I'm burdening them by getting my swim trunks a block away? And if we can start to take a step back and look at our come from for anything that we say, we'll start to notice that, oh, wow. Like sometimes when I say, no, I'm good, I mean, no, I'm really good. And sometimes I mean, please don't hate me. I don't want to burden you and I don't want to have needs. And so looking at our own come from is the best way I could kind of describe, because the words themselves can change, but the come from is the important bit.
So in a situation like that, we don't necessarily need to have a conversation with somebody else. We need to have a conversation with ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, like we talked about earlier, with this work, oftentimes it just comes down to, are we disconnected from ourselves? And so what we're saying is disconnected and not really our true truth. Like, well, whatever you want, Rocky, I'll just say whatever you like. Yeah, but we don't need to go back and get the swim trunks. No. Like I'm disconnection from self or disconnection from others, like not caring, not seeing, not connected to what the other person is experiencing. So sometimes the reconnection to ourselves and what we're experiencing, or the reconnection to the other, is where the work comes in.
So let's say we notice that disconnection with ourselves.
Yeah.
Can we fix it ourselves, or do we need somebody else to fix it? Or how does that kind of work?
No, I think the most exciting part of this work is once distortions are named, oftentimes, and people start seeing them everywhere. You don't need, like, now that you've seen resentment traps, now that we've talked about this distortion, you don't need us to follow you around for the next week for you to be able to see it happening. When someone's like, Rocky, do you want these two things? You're going to feel it. Like, you're going to notice it. You're going to be like, I know what this is, right? You don't need us, the experts in resentment traps, to be there to be like, Rocky, watch out. You're like, you got it. And then what the practice is again, like, let's say someone sets you up with a resentment trap. Do you want A or do you want B, right? And you feel it. To be able to pause and go, wait, what am I feeling? Notice, like, connect to yourself and go, and then have a conversation and bring it into the conversation. I notice I'm feeling a little nervous with these two options, right? I'm a little nervous. I feel like I might want to choose B. And my story is, if I choose B, you might be angry with me. Is that true? Can I actually choose B? Like, actually just bringing your experience and your thoughts into the conversation to drop it into a level 2 conversation is where you can start exploring. And that's where the possibility to clear the distortion comes from, instead of just going A or B.
Does the other person have to be aware, or can I have that conversation when they're, let's call it clueless, of this whole conversation?
I think they have to want to learn. They don't have to be aware. But for instance, if you're in a business conversation with some guy at a networking event, it doesn't really matter if he puts you in a resentment trap, because you're like, I'm not going to talk to you again. I don't, whatever, not a big deal. Now, if you want to pursue a further relationship with that person, it does necessitate being able to go a level deeper and say, hey, I notice that I feel a little bit weird right now, and can I bring something to you? Would you be open to some feedback right now? And if they say no, that kind of tells you a lot. They aren't really open to finding out about distortions happening, and they're not really wanting to grow in this theory. Now, it's not necessary that they are aware of it immediately, but it is necessary that they are open to feedback and can go, yeah, I guess I kind of wanted to do A. Yeah, I would prefer A.
There are people who don't want feedback. There are people who do not want level 2 conversations. There are people, when you say, would you be open to hearing my experience of what it's been like to be in this conversation? We'll say no, or we'll go, sure, and then look at you with their no. Like, I think that's been a really fascinating part of this journey and this experience as we go into it, is kind of finding that there are people that are interested in deepening connection and having real relationships and exploring what it's like to have communications that feel better. And then there are people that just that aren't interested or don't have the capacity or desire. And so being able to sort through that as I go through my life has been an interesting experience.
But I think there's also something to be said about most people, I think, that are listening to you will probably understand the idea of amortizing things financially. And I think when I look at doing this kind of distortion work, there's a pain or an instability that can be brought up when something challenging is brought in between you and I, like a piece of feedback or a distortion pattern or something. There's an amount of pain and challenge in that. And there's a different pain in not doing that, which is the eternal suffering that you have to continue to feel the weight of all of these distortions. Now, the challenge is that this one, people are blind to. People don't notice it because they're so deep in it. It's sort of the same thing as starting a workout routine. Like, yeah, it hurts to start a workout routine, but then you don't have to amortize all the suffering over the rest of your life of not having worked out. And so for this kind of work, I would say there is a challenge in it, which is that it can be very confronting and very scary or gross. And it avoids the pain of now I have to live with the disconnect and the resentment and all the anger and the weird stuff that's happening in me as a result of not having seen or addressed all of these distortions.
Just because I'm a numbers guy, I always want percents. Like if I go out into the world and I start doing this, are most people going to respond positively? Or most people going to be like, whoa, and kind of step back? Like, what have you seen where the one half of the conversation, let's call it unaware?
I think a lot of it also has to do with, as we've gotten better, there's the noticing them and naming them, but also like being able to language them in a way that lands kindly for the other person. Because it's one thing to say, hey, I noticed I felt awful when you did this, right? Like the delivery of a distortion and the energy of how it's shared has a lot to do with how someone might receive it. So as I've gotten better with time, I've seen the amount of people who are open to it also increase, because my delivery is not so harsh and critical sounding and cold and not attuned. So as I've been practicing this work, it's easy to see that, more people are actually receptive to it. So that's also that also plays a role in it. But in terms of numbers or percentages, I don't know. That's a really great question. I would have a hard time taking a stab at that.
I would say if it's delivered in the way that it's so the delivery can also have distortion in it, which is the interesting piece. So if I can deliver something without distortion, I would just ballpark estimate, I would say 60% of people are going to be open to hearing some form of like, oh, yeah, okay, got it. But if I come with like attack energy, or if I'm coming at you with like, Rocky, I feel hurt, while also energetically saying you're a total bag of dicks, like it's not going to be received. And so I would say in a perfect world, 60% of people.
That's actually a pretty decent. Like, to me, that's a good odds.
Yeah.
But I think it was a lot more what Erin said about how the response, like the differences in the response and the wordsmithing it. You know, in the back of my head, I'm like, we just got my son those. They're the Meta glasses. I thought they were better than they were, because I was like, can I wear these? And like, I look at somebody and they tell me who it is because I met them before and remind me of 3 things about them. And now I'm like, and then can it analyze his conversation and tell me in my ear that I'm running a pattern and I should slow down and feel myself because my heart rate just spiked? And you might want to have a conversation of openness. You know, that to me is how the world would get better, but they don't have those yet. They don't do all of that stuff. So here I am stuck, you know, saying something stupid from time to time. Eventually we'll get there, right? That's the future. Any last one of these distortions that you really think people should know about?
Do you want to do an actual real life, real time live distortion clearing with me?
Sure, why not? Okay. I have a ton of them.
Oh, do you have one that you want to clear with me?
No, I mean, I have a ton of them that I'm not even aware of. But let's go.
So I have a distortion that I would love to clear with you in service of having a super smooth field between you and I.
Cool.
I just came up with one. I just thought of one. And this is like, we get to do one in real time. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. So I remember at one point a while back, you had asked if I knew anybody that might be a good fit for your podcast. And I remember I spent like a good chunk of like my next like few days, and I went out into all these different groups and masterminds and had personal one-on-one conversations with people and sent, I don't know, 10 or 15 or 20 people your way. And I felt so delighted to be able to contribute to your life. And then I realized I never heard anything from you. And I didn't know it. Like I, sat there with this story of like, oh, maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe they weren't a good fit. Maybe he doesn't care. Like maybe I wasted my time. And so as time went by, I forgot it because we don't talk very often. But as I was sitting here with you in this conversation, and kind of like the little bubble that I pushed down came up, and I was like, oh, it's right here. I'm like, I could bring this up with him and mention it. And I was like, oh, I get to share this distortion, this little twist or tension that would be here between us, that I could totally go on my way and not mention it. But because I care about our relationship and you, I was like, oh, I'll bring this up and ask you, of course you might, since we don't talk, you wouldn't have felt it. But I realized I felt it. And now I just wanted to share that with you and let you know that that was my experience.
And you know what? I am horrible about follow-up and closing the loops. And part of what happens is you send me that, right? Yeah. And then I usually will copy you on my response to the person. Mm-hmm. And then I take you off because I don't want you to get 28 emails. And then like 2 or 3 weeks will go by, and then we'll have a conversation and we'll figure out if they're a good fit. And then they'll book the show, which is another 45 to 75 days later. And then hopefully I remember that it was Erin that put us together. And I've gotten better about that. And then it's another 60 days till the episode releases. And then it's like, how did I meet this person again? And I got better at it because I started marking them down. And I think the last time when they started to release, I started at least, or I think I reached out to you, or at least I said something at some point or something, because we had some other conversation and then, but maybe not. Maybe I did it in my head, because this is what happens with my son and I. My son and I have, well, he thinks he had a conversation with me. And I'm like, no, you had a conversation with yourself that you did have a conversation with me and I never got back to you. And I know that's something that I'm getting better and better about notating things. And then it's like, oh, I need to appropriately follow up. And then I have to remember to actually do it. But like once this episode, like right now, as soon as we hit stop, about the only thing I do is record the intro and outro. And then it goes out of my hands until whenever it releases. And I don't even set, my VA sends you the email. And then I see it. And then I'm like, oh yeah, I should say something to Erin. And then I get busy on the other 48 emails. And this is what happens. And then I'm like, oh, Erin's too important for me to even bother.
It's so fun to hear like the other side, right? Like your experience, because here I am on my end and I'm like, yeah, it just goes, the intro's just go into a black hole, doesn't matter, doesn't impact him, he doesn't care. And then here you are like, oh, Erin's too busy, I don't need to go and respond to her. And this is why like clearing the distortions and like bringing it up and putting it in the middle is so fun, because I get to hear your experience instead of making a story up in my mind. And half the time they end up with us laughing, you know, because we totally had different assumptions or crossed wires. And then it doesn't carry on moving forward into, you know, like if someone brings up Rocky, you know, 6 months from now, I'm like, oh, that guy, he's not very grateful. He's not very thankful. I wouldn't spend any time with Rocky, right? Oops, did I say that? You know, like, no, that's not going to come out because we got to clear it.
We got to clear it. We did.
In real time.
In real time.
Look at that. We did it. High five.
I have so many things to work on. I do know I have a lot of little, you know, scripts going on in my head too that I'm learning and working through little by little. We're getting there. Cool. Thanks to you. You're the one who opened that can of worms. So that's all I can say. It's time to learn the secrets of life. What's one truth about success you wish more people understood?
That success for every person is entirely different. And that the rubric of one's own success should be much different than that which is enforced upon you by society.
So I'm not supposed to keep up with the Joneses? No.
You can keep up with the Joneses if you like.
That kind of goes against that, doesn't it?
No, it does. It's that success as an idea. There's been an idea of success that society would tell you is what is real. But your being, your body, who you are, might desire a very different thing that it would define as success.
Oh, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
I think most people follow someone else's path instead of defining their own path. And that's the first step. You have to define your path.
Yeah.
What did you learn later in life that you wish you might have learned sooner?
That underneath each one of my feelings was an incredibly valid signal that is the key to my own personal growth. That I don't need a program, I don't need a guru, I don't need a mentor to figure this shit out, there is underneath each one of my feelings, there is a signal that is incredibly useful for my personal growth. And I can become my own fountain of growth if I can listen to myself in the right way.
You have to create the space, right? To listen to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah. We're too busy listening to all the other noise being disrupted by social media and everything else in the world. So you got to kind of take the time to do it for yourself.
Yeah.
If you were to give an 18-year-old one specific piece of wisdom, what would it be?
That you are perfectly built for something in this world. That you have been perfectly prepared, perfectly for something. And that thing might not be the thing that's in front of you right now, but there is a thing out there for which you are perfectly optimized. In the same way a penguin is perfectly optimized to slide on its belly down the ice. I think that's what I would tell them.
It takes a long time to figure that out, or to figure out it in a way that, again, here is the script of America, that you can turn it into income, but maybe you don't have to turn it into income. Maybe you can just enjoy it. And there are things that we all do about that. What I have found, though, and the reason I think people struggle with this, doing spreadsheets in Excel is so easy for me. I just assumed everyone else knew how to do it. And so we kind of think that way, right? That might be one of a different kind of script about what we were talking about.
Yes. The discounting, I think many people, because over time we get told from a million different directions externally, here is what is important, here is what is valuable. We write off the things in us that come easily because those can't be the valuable things. Those things that I do so naturally, the Excel formulas, the communication, the whatever that little thing is, we write off our own highest superpowers and then view ourselves often as broken or as not good enough because we're comparing to this external version of what is important, what is valuable.
Makes a lot of sense. If people would like help with what we've talked about and want to get in touch with you, what should they do?
They should email us right now. This work is an offshoot of the work that we've been doing in the past years. And so we're literally in process of building out our distortion dictionary, in process of building out a website and sharing this more. We have a menu of services that we've built out because we're having a hard time keeping up with demand, but everything is like in a Google Drive folder. So the easiest way for someone to get a hold of us would be via email. And I know that you're sharing the links here in the session notes. And that would be the best way for now.
We will do that. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having us, Rocky.
Thanks, Rocky. It's good to see you.
What Erin and Evan showed us today is that most of the pain and misunderstanding we carry doesn't come from what's spoken. It comes from what's unspoken. Distortions are those hidden twists that quietly block connection. And the moment we notice them, name them, and share our real experience, we begin to restore clarity, ease, and compassion. You see how she did it with me, and even after the call, we continued that conversation. She coached me a little bit more about how better I could have responded in that particular situation. Bottom line is your feelings are valid signals. They're not broken. They're guiding you toward growth and deeper connection. If you're like me, you might have to slow down to listen. Like I mentioned before, Erin was on episode 362, Rapid Transformation, How to Unlock Your Potential. It's all about letting go. It's about subtracting. You don't need anything else. So the question is, where in your life might a distortion be quietly shaping your relationships, your work, your money, your energy, all of those things? By the way, as you listen to this, did you know someone that you're like, oh, they've got a distortion? Well, do us a favor. Share the episode with them. Maybe it'll help you have a better connection. Thanks for listening. Have a wonderful week.